what I do, use it as a moment to shine. I love pets. I love dogs. And I think I'm ready. Are you ready?
We'll go for it.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kevin Briggs, longtime healthcare life sciences business leader, a lot of different companies. But most importantly, I think, at least from what I've done, I co-founded and I lead Texas Day Peru. We take teams of surgeons down to Peru every summer to do surgeries for the poor, help a lot of people, change a lot of lives, and have a whole lot of fun doing it. The genesis of this particular show, The Secret Sauce, I was putting together tips and tidbits for my children as they're beginning their professional careers. And it dawned on me, frankly, I have less to say than all of my friends and colleagues. And I've got lots of friends and colleagues that have really tremendous things to say, that have tremendous accomplishments and have much wiser words than I have. Hence, this little podcast, The Secret Sauce. So, in that spirit, we have as a special guest today a tremendously accomplished professional and friend of mine, Fred Barber. Welcome, Fred.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I really appreciate you doing this.
And by the way, I didn't know I was tremendously accomplished. So thank you. That's good
Well,
to know.
well, and you're a bon vivant and raconteur as well. So,
There you go.
any rate, for those of you who don't know you, can you share a little bit about? I like to kick off the show, talk where we get to talk a little bit about our passion projects, the things that we're pretty jazzed about, hobbies, family. If you got them, can you share a little with some of your favorite things on that?
Sure. I think it's always useful to start off a little bit. The origin story when I was bitten by a radioactive spider. We won't go back that far. But no, I've had a long career in the marketing analytics field. I've built and sold several companies. One was acquired by a $1 billion plus NYSE listed company. That was a good day.
That was,
Back,
yeah.
yeah, back in 2007. And I stuck around with that company for 10 years after they acquired us. I had a good role, worked with smart people, had great clients, was well paid. They had two Lear jets to fly me around the country. So I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. 2017, that company went through a merger and they sold my division to Accenture Interactive.
Mhm.
And at that point, gave me an opportunity to go do something different. And I actually met some folks with a startup company based in the Czech Republic using AI technology. This is 2017, 2018, so early days, but utilizing AI technology to automate the process of market research, basically building full PowerPoint decks out of tabulated data. And I was intrigued by the business. It aligned with a lot of what I knew how to do.
Mhm.
I was unemployed. So I helped bring that business into the US. And then they asked me to be the CEO, which I had not initially anticipated. The founder of the company had enough self awareness to realize that he really didn't like managing people, really preferred to sit behind a desk and do work quietly and not be the main sales guy and the main face of the company. So I stepped into that role, which basically being CEO of a startup meant my job was to go around begging for money, going to startup pitches, both in Europe and the US. I was in a big startup competition in Poland at one point. So we raised a couple 100,000 euros of late seed money. And then we actually took the company through a majority acquisition by a private equity group in 2021. So I am in the process of semi retiring. So I wouldn't call it a side gig, it's more of a passion. So for the last 10 years, I have served on the board of a Christian study center at Cornell University, my undergrad. And this is an institute, it's basically a living learning community for scholars. So think of it as like an honors college with a Christian focus, a secular university. And they're part of a national network. There are 37 of them around the US and Canada. And and a couple of years ago, I was asked to help the folks at UT Austin when they went through a leadership transition with the institute there. So I had coached a guy and helped it successfully go through a reboot post pandemic. And then last year they said, "Hey, could you actually carve out some of your time to do this like around the country?" So this past year, I've worked with groups at Texas A&M, at Virginia Tech, right now at Michigan State, UCLA, Auburn. They gave me a fancy title, Director of Strategic Initiatives. I made up that title actually. I'm hoping a year from now and I've had conversations with my board, phase out of a corporate leadership role and basically is a semi-retired life stage, take on this role with the National Consortium of Christian Study Centers.
It's funny. You and I visited over tacos a few weeks ago, and there was something that I was meaning to talk to you about, and I
Right.
forgot what it was. And I just remembered Texas A. Peru has started bringing pre-med students who need job shadowing hours into onto our missions.
Wow.
Yeah, we need to definitely compare notes on that. And if you're looking for another passion project, I can use all the help we can get on that.
Yeah, and a lot of people in the medical field are people of faith. It's part of the reason they get into it because they want to serve others, and but they're
The Matthew
you know,
25 exercise.
they have skills, they have talent and ability, and they know they can make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll get off of me for a second in a second. We can't prove it, but I think we making better doctors by having students come down and do the job shadowing that we do and spend all that time with the physicians that we do and seeing the
interesting.
world for a different set of lenses than they otherwise would in the suburbs of Dallas, as an example.
Sure.
Any rate, so back to the theme of the show, the secret sauce. And this is the part where I invite all of our guests to share a tidbit of wisdom or a key strategy or a key best practice, something that basically is core that they can always go to that basically helps them. And it seems to be a pretty popular one amongst the folks that I interviewed so far is listening in the ratio of 2 to 1, listening and talking. And I'll return to that here in just a second. But what's your what tidbits would you like to share with not only just professionals, but maybe the folks that are just starting their professional careers?
Yeah, it's a big question, and I tried to think about this after I got your invitation last week of really how I would approach that. I think there's things you learn as you go through your career, as you go through life, and I think many of us who are high achievement people, educated and accomplished, we think very highly of ourselves. In many ways, rightfully, we have accomplished a great deal and built organizations and made some money along the way and so on. And humility isn't really a virtue that gets talked about all that much, particularly in leadership circles. I heard a great expression a number of years ago. It said, be interested, not interesting. Okay. And I wish I had it on a banner, on the top of my computer or something. And I really learned this from sales training. The idea of being a salesman is you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room telling somebody, hey, here's what you need. You want people to tell you that they need your product.
Yep.
And you want to find out what's the person's motivation. So basically, from a sales training perspective, it's a judo technique
Yeah. It's a good
where
way to
where
put it.
where you're saying, "Hey, help me understand." Where darn, but you want them to convey to you. But I think there's much broader applicability in this, in that when you reset your mind to say, in every interaction, I want to know what makes the other person tick. What's their passion, what they're interested in, what their motivation, and give people room. And so often in a leadership role, we wind up domineering, we
Yeah.
wind up dictating, I know it, this is my way. And I'll tell you, one of the things I've loved working for a European company, my team is based in the Czech Republic. And I don't know if it's something innate to Czech culture or just the group I work with, but the lowest level person in my organization has no problem at all telling me I'm an idiot some days. They're very willing to state their opinion. And in many organizational cultures, there is an assumption of deference, a fear that if I speak out against any sort of authority, I'm going to get chopped down.
Yeah.
So as a leader, and this applies to family as well, it applies to every social relationship, you have to have that basic humility and mindset to say, I want to hear where you're coming from. If you want my opinion, I'm more than glad to give it to you. But first, I want to hear from, most importantly, I want to hear from you because I may learn something new.
Yeah.
And I can't think of the number of times that I have gone in thinking I had a solution to a problem. And I've had people give me completely different perspectives or approaches that were better
Yeah.
because I took the time to probe them and give them room to state, hey, here's my opinion. People are validated by that.
Absolutely.
And they become better followers. They become much more devoted to the mission of the organization.
It,
Yeah.
it often begins with thank you.
Yeah. There's a leadership theory. It's called leader member exchange, LMX theory.
Uh-huh.
And what it really gets at is that in most organizations, you have an in group and an out group. You have a small number of people who are close to the senior leadership who have their ear, and
Yeah.
then you have everybody else.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's subconscious. The leader doesn't even know that they have excluded whoever's in the out group. And so it becomes incumbent to just say, okay, I want to recognize that's a reality and I want to try to expand the circles of the in group.
Absolutely. There's such wisdom if you are conscious or self-aware or humble enough to do something and take action on that. 'Cause here's the reality. By myself, I'm pretty good, but put 10 people around me, if I can leverage their talents and skills and blessings, so much more can be done.
Yeah. So the second dimension of this, of the secret sauce, if you'll have it that way, if you use your term, is recognize you're probably not the smartest person in the room.
Well, I always assume that.
Hey,
I,
man.
I'm confirmed. I get confirmation on that every day.
Yeah. And I fed myself for many years on positioning myself as the smartest person in the room.
Or
Yeah.
how about the time you realize, oh my God, I am the smartest person in the room. That's not good.
Those times have existed. Yes. Many years ago, I was pitching with a big ad agency in Chicago. I was basically the marketing analytics part of this big ad agency pitch, and the senior creative director, he and I looked at different planets. He had his part of the presentation. I had my 10 minutes on how we're going to measure and analyze and prove the impact. And
Yeah.
I finished my part. The guy writes on a little yellow sticky note. He writes, dude, you know your shit. Coming from a creative director of a big Chicago ad agency, that is high praise.
I misunderstood because I would have interpreted as possibly to mean, dude, you're shit.
Oh no,
Oh, okay.
he said, you know your shit. Yeah. I'm like, all right. Yes, I guess I do.
That's
But I'll tell you, he knew
very
his.
affirming when somebody you like and respect basically affirms that you know what you're doing.
But I'll tell you, I've been around people with totally different skill sets from mine. And when I see them do their stuff,
Oh yeah.
you can just be in awe.
I,
Anyway.
I I think that's a sign of maturity also that we can recognize that we're quality enough
Yeah.
to not be threatened by the quality and skill and talents of the people around us.
And
And
a lot of people are threatened.
yeah, and I'm not sure what the magic pill for that is necessarily. I'm sure there is. I'm sure we can read a book. Mel Robbins probably has that. But I know it comes from age and maturity, usually,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah. So where else can we take this conversation?
I'm going to edit that part out because it makes it look like I don't know what I'm doing, and I can't handle that. Nah, but the insights you just shared are pretty good, and I'm glad you did it. Is there a question I should be asking you that I'm not asking you?
I think it can be instructive to learn from failure.
Yeah.
But I think an important question is, what have you learned the hard way?
Hey, what have you learned the hard way?
Uh, Yeah. And thankfully, I haven't had any of the massive failures in life. I've had a successful marriage. My kids are all doing great. And you can't take any of that for granted. But I went through a corporate split in 2004. I was one of four partners in a company in Austin, and the other three decided to get rid of me one day. And it was a horrible situation. But really, what it came from, so I'll give you the shortest version I can of the story. The leading partner, none of us had a majority, but the guy who had the largest share, he was pushing what I considered to be a pet project that I did not feel had real good commercial prospects. And I felt it was taking money out of areas that were successful, going into his pet project. And I was quite critical of him in the board meeting, in leadership, the leadership circle. I made known in no uncertain terms that I thought he was wrong. And that was, I might have been right. Ultimately, I was right. I left the company and they failed a couple of years. They failed about 18 to 24 months later. But I was arrogant. And when I had a disagreement with the other person, my obligation was really to work with him directly in a probing, questioning way, trying to get him to understand my
Uh-huh.
perspective. And instead, but what I did was I humiliated him, or
Yeah.
I pissed him off. And,
Yeah.
what I learned there is that even if you have data, and I did, I had all the data, I had all the facts, everything lined up very rationally, but I had zero emotional intelligence in my approach to that situation.
Yeah.
And it wound up in a lawsuit. It wound up in a very ugly situation that it
Ooh.
was a lot of stress on me and my family. Ultimately, I came out okay, but it was a horrible situation I went
Yeah.
through.
But said another way, truth is like medicine. There are many different ways or different routes to deliver the medicine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that's a tough one to basically own up to. That
Mhm.
basically, yeah, you're right in every vector on that. But
Right. And for a long time, I positioned myself as the victim.
yeah,
I had been screwed over by the company and kicked out. I was a 26% shareholder, executive vice president. We were a successful company doing great stuff. And then one day it all ended. And I was bitter. I was very bitter about it for a long time. And it really took a long time for me to come around and say, I created that situation.
yeah.
I got to take responsibility for the
Now,
emotional.
I wish that were a trait that was more common. It's not, unfortunately. I applaud that you had a growth opportunity from that. That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
But thankfully, a lot of great things happened in my career after that. So
Yeah,
I'd been in discussions for about 6 months with a former CEO of a competitor. His company had been bought. He was under a non-compete that was ending. We knew some of the same people. So,
yeah,
I told him what was going on. He said, "Okay, let's take our toys and go to another sandbox." And that wound up working out very well for both of us. But yeah, I learned a lot from confronting people that I thought were making wrong decisions in a way that was not charitable in the least.
yeah, yeah. I think of similar situations where I've gone to war in a situation and I had been wise enough to step back and realize that they're coming from someplace that I'm not understanding. And if I understood that, I would have probably handled the situation a whole lot better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But man, this has been fun. This has been a real fun chat. I wish we had more time. We'll have to do another one another time. I got to do the closing announcements and whatnot. Printed this up. This is a QR code that goes to the Texas Day Peru website. So if you're interested in more in Texas Day Peru, you want to see some of these videos, you can go there. Certainly go there, or go to the YouTube channel. Or if you have a thought or an idea for a guest that might be interesting to be on one of these, put it in the comments below. Subscribe and all that stuff. If you're interested in buying my best-selling book, We Own a Llama Suit and You Can Too, you can go to this QR code and click on that. Don't buy the expensive version, buy the cheap version. You'll get more of your money's worth from that. If anybody's ever interested in having me or anybody of our guests on the show as a speaker, I'm sure you can come here. We can find that information out as well. Also, if you're interested in helping out with Texas Day Peru, either volunteering or supporting, we need all kinds of volunteers, from clinical volunteers to business leaders to just good old fashioned folks who can carry duffel bags. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of help. And one way or the other, it'll change your life. So, Fred, thank you so much again for
Pleasure.
being on with me. And as we try to figure out the best way to do these shows, and coming up with our stupid name and our stupid logo, I think is one step in the right direction. But I really learned a lot today, and I'm so glad we had a chance to do it.
Thank you, Kevin. Good talking to you.
All right. We'll see you soon.